Hey, Yinz guys and gals, gather around for a journey like no other. It's time to hop on board the Yinz Goin podcast. From the rivers that meet at the point to form downtown Pittsburgh, to the sheer face of Half Dome, to the furthest corners of the globe, Matt will be your compass, your confidant, your companion as we explore the wonders of travel. So sit back, relax on your couch, and let the wanderlust whoosh over Yinz as we discover new horizons and reminisce about old favorites. With Matt by our side, the sky's the limit. Join Matt on the Yinz Goin podcast because when it comes to travel, the journey's just getting started. And now, without further ado, let's give a shot for your guide through the highways and byways of travel. Your planning partner, the man with the map, Matt Schraeder. How Ian's doing? Welcome to the Where Ian's Going podcast. I'm Matt. I'm your host. Joining me again today is my dad, Garry. And today we're going to talk about another one of his epic fishing trips. This one was to Alaska in August of 2023.
Good morning.
Yeah, it's getting to be Alaska-like weather out there.
Um, yes, I got a text from my cousin who lives in Alaska, which I visited her on this trip, and she was saying, let's see, I think it was when we first had our hard frost a week or so ago. She said that the weather wasn't too bad so far in
Yeah, and just
Alaska days for them.
just for clarity, we're recording this in early November. We're not going to air it till later, so uh, that would explain the frost. You're not going to get the first frost, middle of the winter up there, unless there's like severe global warming. I don't know. So it was a 14 night stay, or yeah, 14 nights that
Yes,
you.
2 weeks.
So that's one, a long trip, but two, not nearly long enough to see enough of Alaska.
That's for sure. Plenty to do, plenty to see, and it was a year again in advance of planning, of looking for lodging, guides, sights to see, but it all came together fairly well.
Yeah, and like with most national parks, it's recommended you book a year in advance whenever they open up the booking for the different lodges. You don't need to book exactly then, but if you want to get the place you want without any trepidation or any possible complications, that's what you got to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can book stuff much later, but there'll be a lot fewer options.
Yeah, in this case, from what time of year you want to go. Again, we were looking at just so that the weather wasn't too cold, but also based on fishing, what kind of fishing you wanted to do based on the rivers and the type of salmon that are running upstream at that time.
So instead of the old real estate thing of location, 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 this one also has timing.
Exactly. It was fish, fish, fish. But anyways, we started off with the Delta connection through Minneapolis, which wasn't too bad. And the flight from Minneapolis to Anchorage uh, was okay. It uh, gave us a chance to get a little bit of a nap, but again, you're what is it, 6 hours ahead or something like that. So we got the rental car with no problem and began our trek to Cooper's Landing, which is, if you look at the map, Cooper's Landing is just about due south of Anchorage. However, you have to go around the water inlet there, the bay there, to get out onto the Kenai Peninsula. It
Is
was
that
a
Prince?
fairly scenic drive. Again, everything is new, so you're getting to see the sights and marking places you wanted to visit, which we did on our way back to Anchorage for the second leg of our trip. Uh, Lodging is pretty interesting. There's either the upscale fishing package, sightseeing package type of lodges, or if you wanted to get a little bit more of the local fare, we found a place called Gwen's Lodge. And actually, our guide had a place for us that we thought we were going to get, but it filled up at the last minute, and then we found Gwen's. The interesting thing about Gwen's, it's it was centrally located for us on the peninsula near Cooper's Landing, or in Cooper's Landing, and it had a bar, restaurant, and little general store, and we stayed in a one-bedroom cabin with two double beds and indoor plumbing, which is always good.
Especially when you're in Alaska.
Exactly.
Although in August it's not too horrible. But take a step back. My dad flew into Anchorage. The other main one that a lot of people fly into is Fairbanks. So that's a little bit more northeast of Anchorage. It's a several hour drive. So depending on where you want to go. And then
Yeah,
coming down, go ahead.
go ahead.
I say coming down, the body of water was Cook's Inlet that you had to loop around.
Correct. The uh, Fairbanks is actually closer to Denali, if Denali is your primary visit on the trip.
Yeah, and
So we hooked up with this guide named Mike Adams, who was pretty interesting. Again, you're calling these people a year in advance and talk to 4 or 5 different guides over the phone in the middle of winter, talking about, fishing the next year. And he was a pretty interesting guy in terms of uh, responsive, answered your questions, gave you some tips. So, it's kind of a gut feel when you're talking to somebody over the phone of who you decide to go with. Interestingly enough, we decided to fish with him on the Kenai River, which has, 3 sections. We were up near the upper section of the Kenai, which comes out of Lake Kenai, and that upper section flows down into, I think it's Sealac Lake, and then below Sealac is the middle section into Soldotna, and then below Soldotna, I think it's the lower section. So the that time of the year, the sockeye salmon were running, or reds, and people like to fish the Kenai also for kings. The record for a king salmon is something, like 70 pounds, ridiculous. The guy caught, and that would be in the middle section, but they fish a little bit differently for them there. We found out from Mike that there was only a handful, well, I'd say maybe 24, 25 guides that were allowed to and licensed to fish from, we did a drift boat, that section of the river, which goes through, I believe, a state park or some restricted area. So we planned to meet Mike at 6 a.m. When we got there, he called us or sent us a text and said, "Do you want to meet at 5?" We said, "Sure." Our body clock is again going to be ahead of schedule, right?
yeah, it's officially 4
So,
hours is what Alaska's ahead of East Coast.
all right. the it was dark, foggy, and we met him at one of the launch areas along the Kenai. Um, got everything set up. We did not take any gear with us this trip. We looked for guides that would provide waders, fishing rods, all of the needed gear, and hooked up with Mike, got everything lined up. We then climbed into his truck, and he took us upriver, where we launched the boat for our full day float on the river. And it was interesting. The reason he got us there is that it's somewhat crowded in terms of where you're fishing, but usually you'll not fish from the boat directly. The salmon are running upstream, so he finds a little inlet or a little cove, a little spot that's a little bit slower water flow, and that's where the salmon will rest on their way upstream, which, again, he put us in a prime location, as you saw other boats drifting by and the guides looking at us and saying, oh, they got one of the good spots. So anyways, we immediately were catching fish. We were using probably a 10-foot fly rod with a little fly on the end of it, doing just basically a overhand roll cast out and drifting it across. The salmon aren't really feeding. They're basically reacting to that strike stimulus that they have in their brain to hit that little fly that looked like a piece of black yarn. And we caught some very nice salmon. We were allowed to keep the sockeyes, but we did not know or were educated enough on, well, what do you do with the fish, is what we thought. Well, this is the second day of a 14-day trip, or we're going to haul these fish around with us. But the other part of it is, I think at that point in time, you were allowed to keep 3, and then we would have been done fishing. So we kept fishing. Your goal is to fish for the salmon that they call chrome, meaning that they're silver and they're not dying, as you see these fish working their way upstream to spawn. And after they spawn, they basically become what they call ghost fish that are falling apart, dying, and not much life to them. Fished all day with Mike, had a good time with him. He was very safety conscious. He had a good lunch for us, and we were going to fish with him a day later for trout. So we told him we were going to Resurrection Bay and asked, we were going to fish for rockfish and salmon. He said that we asked him if he wanted any fish. He said, no, he has plenty of salmon, but his friend was coming. So if we had some fresh salmon that we wanted to keep, he'd take that, and he liked rockfish. So the next day we drove to Resurrection Bay and went out of Miller's Landing for a half-day fishing for coho salmon or silvers and rockfish. That was interesting. The weather that morning was, it was really foggy. The drive wasn't too bad. It was a 2-lane drive down to Stewart. Took about an hour or so, but maybe a little bit longer because of how foggy it was. And, when we got to that Miller's Landing in the Resurrection Bay, which, by the way, as the fog cleared, there were giant cruise ships docked in there that we didn't see as you're, fogged in. But anyway, we went out of there, and on the way out, I guess there were 5 of us on the boat fishing, the captain and a mate. Saw some orca whales, which the captain didn't like because they eat the silvers, and they basically scare the salmon away. So we went a little bit further out into just uh, the Gulf of Alaska. I guess it's called Resurrection
Hmm.
Peninsula, which was pretty scenic with rocky cliffs, eagles up on top of the. You see eagles everywhere in Alaska, by the way. They're uh, not uncommon. Always fishing, always doing something. But once we got out a little bit further into the Gulf of Alaska, you could see some of the glaciers that were, I guess, off to our east, which was interesting. The fishing was okay. It wasn't, we didn't catch a lot of salmon. We caught some rockfish and had a good half day. Um, that was probably the least productive fishing trip that we had. And then from there, we went over to, we had lunch in Seward, which is, like I said, a stop for some of the cruise ships. So it's a pretty neat town. Some nice restaurants, souvenir shops, things to see. And we went from there over to the Kenai Fjords State Park and did a walk, uh, exit. I think it's called Exit Glacier. There was a trail that took us up to the glacier where you could see um, the entire glacier. And it was interesting on the walk. They had signposts showing with each year marked and how far the glacier had receded, so that it was shrinking. And you could see how much of the glacier had uh, eroded away. Um, that was worth the stop, worth the hike. Stretch your legs, change things up a bit, and went on to the next day of fishing with Mike Adams.
Before you go on
Uh,
to that next day, from Cooper's Landing, you basically take Route 1 east and then get on Route 9, which goes kind of southeast, then south down to Seward. You're like wrapping around Kenai Lake for some geography. And then Kenai Fords National Park, that's to the west of Seward. So Cooper's Landing, Seward's like the southeast of that. Kenai Park or Kenai Fords National Park is huge, and that's true of most of the national parks in Alaska. That they take up a lot of land. Of course, Alaska is so big itself; it's like one third the size of the continental United States.
yeah, they had other options too, where you could do a kayak trip and paddle up to some of the glaciers there at Kenai Fjords. But
Yeah, that's a popular shore excursion for the cruise ships up there.
right, right. So the second day of our adventure with Mike Adams was what they call the Canyon Run, and it's the lower end of the upper Kenai River before you get into Lake Sealac. The issue there is when you get through the canyon, you're not, uh, well, you can't paddle upstream, and there are no power boats allowed on that section of the Kenai. So you get down empty into the lake. He had a motor on, and he was allowed to use the motor, but we had to go 8 miles across the lake to get to his truck, where somebody, ferried his truck over there to that drop off point. The problem is if there's a lot of rain or wind, their small boats can't get across the lake. So it was touch and go as to whether we would make that trip or not. So my fishing buddy said Mike agreed to it because we gave him some salmon and rockfish, so he liked us.
Hey,
But anyways,
bribery.
the canyon was pretty scenic, and again, might put us on fish. And I think my first cast, I caught a real nice trout coming through there, and he would pull off to the side. It was interesting before he went down to the canyon again that he was very safety conscious. He said, "Okay, here's what you do. If anything should happen to me or we fall out of the boat, stay to the right side and either walk your way all the way down to the lake," he said, "or you can try to go cross country to get to the road, which is, 3 miles through the woods." He said, "But I wouldn't recommend that." He said, "There's a satellite radio in the emergency kit," he said, "but that doesn't always work either. So just keep walking on down till to the lake." He said, "Somebody will find you." He said, "Okay, Mike." Um, the canyon had some very nice spots to pull off and just do some sightseeing. We changed up and fished with spinning rods and fly rods, and had some very good luck, caught some beautiful fish. And it was a very scenic ride. There were some sections of it that had some white water to it, nothing that was traumatic or too technical. Oh, when we got down to the bottom of the run and into the lake, we saw a seal that I said, "What's that seal doing in the river?" He said, "It swam up from the ocean following the salmon upstream, just looking for something to eat." The ride across the lake was pretty interesting too. There were some high cliffs off to the, I guess, I guess that would be the east side. We were kind of heading north across the lake, and we saw a mother bear with three cubs down by the lake, and he did a circle around with the boat, which was interesting because he said once he stops the engine, the motor on the boat, and it, becomes silent, it spooks the bears. He says as long as the motor keeps going, the bears are conditioned to know that they're not going to, those people are moving, so they're not going to be a threat to the cubs. We
That's
made the
pretty
trip
interesting.
across. Go ahead.
That's pretty interesting how they learned that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And as we made our way out, the road out of that where we took the boat out, he was telling us a story about a few years before when they had those fires in Alaska. He was on that same uh, guided trip with two people, and the wildfires, they had to spend the night near the lake because of the wildfires had cut off their exit to the main road.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So he said they didn't know what was going on. He said, "Our best chance is we've got a boat, we've got a lake." He said, "We're going to spend the night here. And, this is the highest percentage of survival being near a lake in a boat if there's a wildfire." So I thought that was interesting. Would have been a good story to tell, but I'm glad I didn't have to go through that.
Yeah, as long as you don't have to worry about the fumes, you know you're not the fire's not going to reach you in the middle of the lake.
That's it. So then we went back, spent the night at Cooper's Landing at Gwen's Lodge. The interesting thing about Gwen's is that the restaurant food wasn't too bad. They had a little general store there. They had a nice outdoor patio, and they had campfire going. So it was a nice opportunity there. And then we got up the next morning and we're driving to Homer. Uh, and Homer, there were a few places to stay, but we got a VRBO that was up on a bluff where you could see the inlet, Cook's Inlet, and it was a very nice place. The lady called it a not a bed and breakfast, but a bed and dessert. She would give you dessert every evening of some kind of baked crumble, strawberry tart or something. I mean, they were pretty tasty. Very nice place that we stayed at there.
Now the
We
drive.
fished.
I was
Go
gonna
ahead.
say the drive from Cooper Landing to Homer is a bit long, just because you have to loop around a bit. It's basically staying on Route One. You go all the way over and skirt the Cook Inlet there, and that's the
Right.
route you took to the long one. So um, it's gonna be very scenic, and you're gonna get some nice views of the water and some mountains there. But you're gonna loop all the way around this little peninsula, or
Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, it's like it's a little, I guess, sort of a peninsula. The little end that juts out where Homer is.
Yes. And there uh, there's a bar there called the Salty Dog. It's a little divey place, but there are dollar bills. I don't know how the tradition started, and people would write their names on it and put them on the ceiling and all over the walls. It's pretty crazy. And we found a restaurant there that we had some halibut. I forget the name of the restaurant. It was a small place right on they call it the Spit, is that a bit of land that jets out into the area. It just basically has black sandy beaches and everything's up on stilts, the boardwalk, etc.
Yeah, it's about oh, mile and a half, 2 mile long little finger of land. It's like basically a shallow black rock beach that goes out into Ketchimack Bay.
Right. Um, the weather for the drive over wasn't too bad and sunny, but again, that time of the year, it's pretty can be wet and overcast any time of the day, which was interesting when we got to Denali, which we'll talk about later. Um, Fishing Cook's Inlet, we went out on a charter boat. I guess there were 8 people or so on it, and we're there at 6 in the morning or so, standing at this little building, and there's a number of different charter boats going out of that area, and the captains come up, say, I'm so and so with this particular boat. So we were looking for the Irish Mist, and this young woman comes up and says, "Okay, those for the Irish Mist, let's go down to whatever." And my friend and I are thinking, okay, she's one of the I guess we're chauvinists. She's one of the people that uh, you know admin. She was the captain of the boat, and the first mate was a young girl as well. Oh, everybody's younger than me, and they did an excellent job. They put us on. We started fishing off. First of all, you got to take a basically almost a 2-hour drive out into the bay. You're fishing for halibut first, and they can be, as big as a garage door. 200 feet down with a 3-pound weight, which is just a chore cranking it up without the fish on it. And it's interesting, she pulled into this particular spot and was showing everybody, okay, this is how you fish. You hold the rod this way, you put the thing down. She sets it down and puts it in a rod holder. And all of a sudden, the one guy says, "Hey, Captain, I think you got a fish." So as soon as we started, that was a fun day. Basically, you take turns uh, standing around the side of the boat, um, wherever section. And if you once you get one on, it's a interesting dance to not tangle up everybody else's line. So the mate and the captain are saying, you go up here, you pull over here, lift up your rod, go under that person's rod, and get to the side so you don't foul everybody else. So I caught I don't know, probably there's a certain limit to how big the halibut has to be. You can't take it if it's too small, you can't keep it, or if it's too in a certain section or certain length, you can have one that's so long and then another one that has to be over, I think it's 36 or 34 inches. And after we caught everybody, I think we're pretty close to having two. We moved on and we were going to fish for king salmon, which is a different way of fishing, which is trolling. So she's basically dragging a bait fish behind the boat, and there's only four rods out there, and you take a turn as to who's up once you get a strike. And I was one of the first ones up and caught a real nice king salmon. These are juvenile salmon that are not yet mature enough to make their way up the rivers, but they're pretty big for being juveniles.
And
So
I was
we had a
thinking, just
good
going
day
back to
there.
just
Go
going back
ahead.
to the halibut, you're saying 34, 36 inches. That's a 3 foot fish.
Oh, absolutely.
So those are
Abs-
big suckers.
Oh, and they can get to be huge as well.
As they're
Um,
3 feet long isn't huge.
exactly. The when we got back to the dock, you have somebody that cleans the fish for you, and then you figure out what do you want to do with the fish. So we did some more investigation after we talked to Mike about, he was wondering why we weren't keeping fish, and he gave us a couple of pointers. A lot of people basically take their fish and pack it, they flash freeze it, and you see people as you're leaving Anchorage, and I'm sure it's probably the same in Fairbanks or wherever, bringing these boxes of fish uh, to check on the airplane to take home. So, you just basically pay for the box and the processing. Well, we were there, we still had another week to go. So we did a FedEx of about 30 pound of halibut and salmon that we sent back. I think it cost us like $350, but it was, we looked at it, it was like $10 a pound or something, $11 a pound, where the halibut and the salmon at your local fish market are going for 20 and $25 a pound. So price wise, it was worth it, and we had it uh, taken care of and out of our way.
That's
So
getting you have to go into Alaska to get your discounts salmon.
that's right. That's
Just like
right.
go, or if you knew this joke was coming up at some point, you went to Alaska for the halibut, right?
Exactly. The next part of our adventure was to drive back to Homer, or I'm sorry, drive from Homer to Anchorage, because we were going to do a fly-in from Anchorage into a place called the Wilderness Lodge. But most importantly, we had to do laundry in Homer, found a laundromat, which was interesting. There was a number of people there that we talked to, the locals that were pretty nice, interested in where we were from. I guess they see a lot of visitors. And the one woman that ran the laundromat was pretty neat. She told us about a little breakfast place that was, I mean, just a small little bacon and egg kind of place that was, that the locals went to. That was, we did that after, and then began our drive all the way back Anchorage.
And that's one of the important things is whenever you're going to these different, whenever you go anywhere, talk to the locals because then you get those little gems of, oh, yeah, here's where all the locals go. So if you know that the locals are giving that place consistent business, it's got to be a good place.
Exactly. Um, we also went to on the way back, and I was looking for. We wanted to do a trip over to Whittier, and there's a cruise out of Whittier. So that when you're coming up Cook's Inlet and you go around, it's called Turn Around or Turn Again Bay, Turn Again Arm Bay. Whittier is at the very eastern point of that. And it's pretty interesting because you have to go in the town of Portage, you have to go through a railroad tunnel through the mountain and take your turn for traffic going outbound and inbound and wait for the trains. And if you miss your queue, you could get stuck on the other side of the mountain for the night. So our plan was to go to Whittier and to take a glacier sightseeing cruise. But when we got out over there, there was 50-mile-an-hour winds and very high seas. So the sightseeing tour was canceled. So we toured Whittier. You could see some of the glaciers from where we were. Again, some cruise ships were pulled in there, which was a pretty neat little adventure.
Yeah. And so when you come up Cook Inlet, Anchorage sits right on the water there. And then there's that little inlet that runs to the south. And then you go across the land to get to the other side where the other little fjords are with Whittier. And all these places like Whittier, Anchorage, Seward, if you don't want to do your driving, they have train service. And the Alaska trains are pretty good that they go through Whittier and then down to Seward. The only issue is that if you're doing the train, you got to be on their schedule.
Yeah, which you see the train all the time. Plenty of people on the train and plenty of people. I think Princess Cruise Lines uh, has a pretty good connection with the train, which hits a lot of their different uh, hotels and stops along the way.
Yeah, Royal
Uh,
Caribbean is really good with them too. They actually have their own Royal has their own stuff that they can like charter their trains because they get enough people to do a sea land combination. So
yes,
yeah, the cruising in Alaska is a whole big thing that the cruise lines work a lot with the people up there to do the shore excursions and then pre stays or post stays or whatever else.
right. So we worked our way back to Anchorage. We stayed basically at a hotel Hyatt near somewhere in Anchorage there. I think it might have been near the airport because we stayed there, I believe, on our way out, which was good because we were only allowed so many pounds of gear to get on this little seaplane, six-passenger seaplane that flies out of Anchorage, right next to Anchorage International Airport. There's a little inlet of bay of water where all these seaplanes are docked and taken off, which was pretty neat. So we could leave some of our luggage at the hotel, which they were very nice people there as well. Um, we got onto our little seaplane and took off to Wilderness Place Lodge. This was due west of Anchorage, and it was on off the Yetna River, and there was a stream called Lake Creek that basically, again, is another glacier that lake that melts and the water comes down. As we're flying in on the Yetna, it looks like cement because of all the flow from the melting uh, glaciers, which grind the stone. And we were wondering, how do we fish that? Well, we weren't fishing that. We were fishing the creek that Lake Creek that had that stream had clear water. So you land on the river, you pull over to the bank. The guides come over in a boat. You load your stuff in the boat, and you take off and get off the Yetna, go up the Lake Creek, and park your boat in front of the lodge. The Wilderness Place Lodge was, one of the places that we land on. There's several of them that are very similar. They offer, guide services, and this one touted their gourmet food, and it was definitely gourmet food. They would have the chef come out and tell you every day what you're going to have for dinner. The first lunch we had was a very good salmon burger that we asked them if it was the local salmon, and they're not allowed to sell the local or serve the local salmon. They have to have salmon that's approved and certified by whoever the food inspectors are up there in Alaska. What I thought was interesting, you've got all these salmon right in front of you, and they're bringing in salmon from that's processed somewhere. Anyway, we hooked up with our guide, which he was going to be a senior at Texas A&M. So he was maybe 21, 22 years old. And this was his third year of being a guide at that lodge, which, we're like, okay. Again, old man being prejudiced, we're like, well, what are we doing with this young kid? And it was, again, the wrong impression. Don't judge a book by its cover. He was very good, very, very, very helpful, very friendly, put us on fish, knew the stream, worked hard, worked his butt off. We fished there and caught several different types of salmon, silvers, which you wanted to keep. Those were the coho. Chum, which they call them dogfish because they're basically used to make dog food, but they were the most aggressive and fun to catch. And the third was pinks, which pinks you need to eat right away. They don't freeze well, but there was a bunch of those. So again, what we would do is go up the river, find a spot where you could get out of the boat, and then fish these what they called sloughs, where the salmon are resting before they go upstream. And we had brought with us, even though we didn't have any rods or fishing gear, we brought some of our lures that we used in Pennsylvania. And this one lure called the Thomas lure, and the others called a Picola, that's made in over near Bedford, Pennsylvania. Thomas is pretty much, I guess, a national brand. But they were catching fish to the surprise of our guide. He said, "These are pretty good. You got to try these." So we had one day a shore lunch, which was pretty neat. We did fry up. They had a area near the river where they kept a supply of wood, pots and pans, etc., and they packed in the vegetables that we had and some of the other beverages, etc. And we did that with actually there were two guides, another boat and ours, and had a shore lunch. And before we went there, in that one little area of the slough that we had, there were these giant bear paw prints with a cub following them. So we were having lunch. We were asking our guide, do you think the bears will come by and want to join us? He said, no, they were heading the other way. Someone saw them somewhere else. So that was pretty good. That was nice.
Now,
Uh,
the
Go
Wilderness
ahead.
Place Lodge is actually one of the featured lodges that the Alaska Travel, is it official name is Travel Alaska, which is like the tourism, main tourism thing for Alaska. That's one of the places they highlight as a
Yeah.
place to stay. And it's cute little lodges, little cabin things, but it's right on that water. And it's, like my dad said, great place to go fishing.
Well, the lodge was, made up of, individual cabins. The cabin that we had, there were two of us. There was one double bed and one, twin bed. You had your own bathroom. The interesting thing is, after 10 o'clock, the power goes off. They shut down the generators. So they tell you if you, and that shuts down the pumps. So if you need to use the potty before the 5:30 a.m., more than once they said we'll give you some water so you can flush the toilet. They all had bottled water. They had a couple of pavilions right on the water that were stocked with beverages and snacks, so that in a fire pit if you wanted to sit around and relax. The bugs weren't too bad, the mosquitoes, until and they had bug spray for everybody everywhere. But the early part of our stay, they weren't too bad. But towards the end, for whatever reason, the mosquitoes got a little aggressive. Did not have a lot of problem with them anywhere else during the trip that I can recall. Maybe a little bit on the Kenai, but it seemed like if you were on the water, there weren't that many mosquitoes. But the
Yeah.
lodge was very nice.
Yeah. During the summer, the mosquitoes, they thrive up there. There, I even saw a couple pictures of some of the cabins that had the mosquito net.
Right. Well, what they give you is that coil of whatever that bug repellent is that sends off a little smoke. They
Hmm.
give you those to set by your front door and light them so that, you learn quickly not to leave your door open and to go in and out of your cabin quickly. But the lodge was good. The lodge was good. So then we flew back from there to Anchorage, and on the way out, oh, interesting. While we were there, we went upstream and fished a lake for pike, northern pike. Um, and there's three little lakes that connect. And there was a couple of guys, I guess there was four of them that came from Atlanta, and they went up. You can go up to the other two lakes, but you have to, drag the boat up over these small parts of the stream. So they had four of them, well, actually six with their, two guides. So they had more horsepower to get those boats up there. The water was low. And when they got up to that top lake, they had a 100% view of Denali, which we
Oh,
saw only, our whole time there. That's becoming one of they call the 30% club. If you get to see Denali without any clouds around it, we saw Denali with a little bit of cloud cover from where we were. So after we came back, they were showing us our pictures. We said, well, hell, we should have hooked up with them and drug all our boats up there. But
yeah.
anyways,
What's that called? Portage when you carry the boat over land?
correct, correct.
So, you were saying about the mosquitoes. That reminds me of being in Indonesia. That there's a lot of mosquitoes. At least where in Banda Aceh, where my wife is from, that it's a standard practice that in the evening before you go to bed, you'll close the doors to your bedroom and you'll turn off the air conditioning and all the fans. And there's a pretty powerful bug spray that you spray in there, and then you leave for 15, 20 minutes, half hour, whatever. And then it's safe to go into the room for the night without having to worry about mosquitoes flying around. The mosquito net there, it's called a kalambu, is the Indonesian word for it. In a couple of the places we looked at to stay over there when we were traveling for hotels, they had that. And initially, my wife was like, "Oh, look at that little neat little decorating thing they have." When we were looking at pictures, look at that decoration they have over the bed. It's like that's not a decoration.
That's it.
Like,
Yeah,
look, honey, see. Go ahead.
it wasn't that bad, but you had to watch for them.
Yeah, bug spray's that same thing with whenever we were in Yosemite, walking through the valley there, especially when we did the 4 mile trail and coming down from that
Exactly.
in that
Yeah, that
little
was horrible.
yeah. So whenever you go back to Anchorage, there's a thing on the southern end of Anchorage. It is the let me get the name of it, the Turnagain Arm that
Right.
cuts in it, and Route One runs right along the northern edge of that, kind of down to where near Whittier is that little inlet. That there's something called the bore tides or the tidal bore, which is pretty neat. That whenever the tide comes in, it comes in like on a wave. That the because this little inlet, then you'll see people that can actually surf on it. And so it's a neat little phenomenon of having this big like wall of water that you can see just moving down. It's a few feet high. It looks like when you're at the ocean, like a wave coming into the shore, but it just goes on forever along the entire length of this arm of the little inlet there.
Right, right. Yeah, when we went through, it was in we did not see that, but the I can't remember which way it was, but the one outbound time we drove by it, it was full water. The next time it was mud, so that, the whatever the uh, tide comes in, it's definitely a dramatic change in the water level.
It's like the Bay of Fundy up in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. It's you at one point it's full of water. Next time you see the boats just stranded on the ground there. Yeah, so you got to get your timing right to see the tidal bore, though.
That's it. The um, yeah, the flight out of the Wilderness Lodge, we got from the plane. The guy took us again, trying to get a look at Denali, but again, it had cloud cover. You could see the top, you could see the bottom, but again, there was clouds in the middle. I got a picture of that, so that was pretty interesting.
And that says something
Um,
whenever there's mountain above the clouds.
oh yeah, and it every time we went, would get a glimpse of it. There was some kind of portion of it that was covered with with its own weather system. At
It's if you
20,000 feet or plus, anything can happen, I would imagine.
Yeah, if you ever seen Ken Burns' National Parks documentary, whenever they start talking about Denali, that there's a shot that they show the bottom of Denali and they go up and you see this cloud cover, and then they keep going up and it's kind of like what you saw, and you see the mountain above the clouds. It's stunning.
Yes.
And
So,
the seaplanes though, there are companies all over, um, whether it's out of Anchorage, Talkeetna, which is a little bit north of Anchorage, up near Denali especially, that they have flight seeing tours. So it's not
right.
sightseeing, it's flight seeing. They take you up in a plane. There's helicopters that can take you to glaciers, especially down farther south. There's a real big, it's like the largest national park in the U.S. It's Wrangler something National Park that they'll take them all over. And so it's a fairly common thing as a nice way to get around. Like even Juneau, you can't get there by car. You have to either fly in or take a boat.
Yeah. Even while we were there, waiting to go to the Wilderness Place Lodge, whatever weather there was around Denali or wherever they were going, these people that, ran uh, uh, the sightseeing flights were calling people, telling them, oh, by the way, the flight you know, to see Denali, we can't do it today because of the weather. So they were offering, options or their money back. So Um, if that's on your bucket list, you may want to plan at least a couple of days of flexibility because it's definitely weather dependent in terms of especially going towards Denali, whether you'll be able to do the flight or not.
Yeah, do it early in your trip so in case something happens, you have a time to reschedule it.
Exactly. So after, out of Anchorage, we were, done fishing and heading to Denali. On the way to Denali, I stopped at Wasilla to see my cousin, which is my dad's brother's daughter. She went to Alaska in the 70s to be a ranger, and then the oil boom hit. So she did a lot of work on the Alaska pipeline, her and her husband doing various things. They bought 100 acres and homesteaded it. The interesting thing about that is the timber that was taken from their land is part of the uh, wood that they used for the ceiling and some of the beams, support beams at the Talkeetna Princess Hotel, which we stopped at and took a picture. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah,
Uh,
connection to it.
that's it. What she does now is she raises and trains dogs that uh, I guess they basically do competitions of sheep herding and saw their greenhouse. I was asking her about, oh, you got a greenhouse, I guess, for the weather. She said, no, everything's permafrost because of the soil. They, have to grow everything above ground, but they have a lot of, giant vegetables because of the long growing season in terms of daylight,
Oh yeah.
all the daylight that they get.
And with the dogs, there are several areas in, well, all throughout Alaska, specifically in Fairbanks. I remember seeing it that there you can meet sled dogs. So the ones that,
Yes,
during, especially during the summer, that they'll have some wheeled sleds that you can take rides on, or you can just play with the dogs whenever they're running around. And then in the winter, you can go on a little sled dog tour as well. And then renting snowmobiles is another big thing during the winter, although as they call it the snow machine.
right. Well, the in Denali, there is the rangers have a exhibit for sled dogs, and they were saying, why do you still do this? They said because the dog sleds can go to places where even the snow machines can't. And you can volunteer to walk the dogs. You see people on the park, they call it Park Road, not to be confused with Park Highway, which is Route 3. Park Road in the park, you'll see people walking dogs along the side of the road, just to give them their exercises. So that's a nice exhibit to go visit. Um, we stayed in Healy, which is north of Denali, because we weren't sure if we were going to go to Fairbanks or not at a small hotel up there or lodge. I mean, it was pretty basic, doors open to the outside. But again, most of the people that are, on vacation and touristy there, we, met some nice people there as well. And the little town of Healy is pretty neat. There's a couple of nice locations to eat. One we found is where the tour buses stop or the train, from the trains. So that was uh, timing wise, we got there before all the buses unloaded. But
And if you're going to go to Denali National Park, that just to be aware that there is a Denali State Park, which is kind of the southeast of the national park. Then going up along the road where you're going to stay, there's a place called Cantwell. Then farther north is a place called Denali Park. So don't confuse the whole thing of national park, state park, just Denali Park. And then Healy's a little bit farther north of that, and that's actually one of the areas where some of the flight seeing will go out of. It's very near there if you're going to go to Denali.
Right. And we decided to take the bus through the park. You can go the first 15 miles on your own in a vehicle. Excuse me, your own vehicle, but then you can't go beyond that. And the that park road runs 92 miles or so. But I guess, and I don't think it's still open. I looked recently, but it's closed down after 43 miles because of a landslide. And the we decided to get out early and take the first bus out at 7 a.m. just so that we get an opportunity, hopefully, to see more wildlife, which it didn't disappoint us. I mean, not long into the trip, we got to see moose, we got to see caribou, grizzly bear, which interestingly enough, we're following, according to the driver, the same trail as the caribou.
Hmm.
Um, there were some mountain sheep off in the distance that, they were hard to see with your binoculars. They looked like little white dots. But that was a good ride, and spent most of the day doing that. And then again, as I said, I don't know if we did maybe went through the visitor center that day and then did a return trip where we drove the 15 miles. And at the end of that, um, I'm looking at the map. I can't remember what it's called. Yes, Savage River. There's a trail there that's interesting that you can walk up. Probably it's like a 2 mile loop or something. And again, the guy I was with, my fishing buddy, said, "You go first." He said, because we're looking around the corners for bear every now and then. But we did not see any bear. Saw some eagles, and it's an easy walk. It's not too vigorous from a incline standpoint.
Now, the big question was which of the two of you was a faster runner? Because that's the thing. You don't got to outrun the bear. You just got to outrun somebody else.
That's right.
Uh,
They go for the old and lame animals.
exactly. In the Denali Park Road is 92 miles. You can get up to mile 45, like my dad said. It is expected to open fully in 2027. So that just
What?
says something. Yeah. So
Yeah, that
that's,
must have been a heck. Now where they dropped you off, you could make it over to, I think it's called like the Polychrome Outlook, which was you could walk down the riverbed where that stop was. But when we were there, they were talking like, 2 years or a year they were going to open it up. So that had to be a heck of a slide. There's probably videos of it out there somewhere, or what it is.
yeah. Although other updates I'm seeing is they say through the summer of 2026. So maybe late in the summer, but they're expected to be open at least by, the following season after that.
But I think there's two or three options in terms of the type of bus that you want to take. The bus that we were on, you could actually get off and get on at the various stops. And then there's one that's a narrated tour that you don't get off. And there were a number of, at the various stops, of people getting off and getting on that were going backpacking into various parts of the park. So
Yeah, they have the hop on, hop off. There's one that we'll talk more about the animals. Another one talks more about just the history of it. So yeah, there's a couple different options of the different tours you're going to take.
yeah, and there's supposedly what you're supposed to do is call out the animal that you see, not just yell, "Hey, hey, look there," so the guide can stop. And there was these little ground squirrels that the one person on the bus seemed to find it amusing to call that animal out every time he saw one. So that became the joke on the bus.
There's it's a Disney show, Disney cartoon from a couple years ago, Up, that there's a dog there that gets
Right.
distracted by squirrels all the time. Squirrel. So, yep,
Yeah.
I can just imagine that.
Yeah, you get distracted by the squirrels. Um, the area around Denali, there's a couple of different, as you come out of the park on Highway 3, right at, I guess it might be the town of Denali. There's a Princess Hotel up on top of the mountain, and then there's another group of, I don't know if it's a Princess property, maybe it was a Royal Caribbean property, but it had a number of different restaurants in it of all different price scales. So that it was, about four or five, at least four, maybe five different restaurants that you could dine from, pizza to sit down dining and, pub food, everything in between, which was a good stop along the way.
Something to please everybody.
Yeah. And on our way back, I think it was on the way back, or maybe it was on the way up. I can't remember where we stopped at Talkeetna, which is uh, I guess about halfway between Denali and Anchorage.
Yeah, roughly around there.
Yeah, that's a interesting little town. We were looking at the maybe going out on the Talkeetna River, excuse me, the fish again, but that seemed a little bit involved in terms of meaning you definitely needed a raft and you definitely needed a guide, and we didn't want to invest another whole day in doing that. But it's a pretty quaint little town. And I think that again, yes, we went there to see the Talkeetna Princess Hotel and the timber that came from my cousin's property.
Yeah, based on your itinerary, that was on the way back, right before you flew home.
Right. And we went to we got back to Anchorage. We went out to eat and found a bar restaurant called, I guess Anchorage is the 59th state. It was something like, I think it was called State
Or,
59 or something
or
like that,
State 49. Yeah.
or 49, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, that had a rooftop area that you could look out over the bay of, there in Anchorage, and some, ships going back and forth. Pretty, pretty neat little place. So, um, definitely a trip that takes a bit of planning. But again, as as you said, Matt, if you wanted to get on the rail and cruise piece, I think that worked out, would be a easier way to get someone to lay it out for you. And, if you don't mind being on their schedule, as you said.
Yeah, it's a comes down to a big thing of it's a trade-off of whether you want that flexibility and freedom versus, having to do stuff yourself like the driving and, being catered to. That cruising Alaska is a really nice option that you only have to unpack once and then you get to go to several different places. 'Cause Alaska is huge, and I'm going to get to this in my travel tip. And so being able to get around without having to do all the driving, cruising is a nice thing. And then also taking the trains, it's a way you can kick back and relax. And the different railroads, especially the ones going up to Denali, they are pretty darn fabulous. Of it rivals the Rocky Mountaineer and now Canyon Spirit. It's in the U.S. Rocky Mountaineer goes from Vancouver over to like Banff,
Right.
through that it's you can get, the thing on the level that you get, that there can be gourmet meals and you get this glass domed car that you're in, and you're treated like royalty, that they have some really nice options there.
Yes, yes. And and again, a lot of the roads that we drove, the train tracks were, right along, followed the same path that it would be as you were driving.
And one thing up in Fairbanks, there just weirdly enough, there is a museum that has all these classic and fancy cars there. That's something you
Hmm.
really wouldn't expect to have like in Alaska.
Exactly. If they get them there, they don't go anywhere else.
Exact. Yeah. Especially during the winter.
But you know, did not get to see Denali 100%, so we weren't part of the 30% club, which is interesting. They have t-shirts and stickers, etc., that says you're part of the 30% of the people that go to Alaska to see Denali that see it completely clear. Better chance in the wintertime, as they say.
Yeah,
Well,
and there's also some other benefits for going in the winter too, which I'll hit on. But you can maybe get the shirt for a different type of 30% club of it was really cloudy that day. I saw 30% of it.
that's it. That's right. The top 30%, the top third. Missed the second third. You'd always see the bottom third, the middle third always had some clouds around it.
The 30% that actually get to see the middle third. So, do you have a travel tip you wanted to add?
Um, I think the challenge that we had was, what do you take, from a packing standpoint? I'd say one thing, at least the time we went, there was moisture. Now, whether it was raining or just, foggy or something of that nature, um, definitely some good uh, Gore-Tex, you know, and layers as usual, because other days it was very nice and clear and I don't want to say warm, probably 50s, 60s of that nature. Maybe it hit 70 one of the days. Um, I think the other thing is that there's so much to see and do is that you might want to narrow the list of things that you want to do and make sure that you're not hurrying up to just hit a punch list and not enjoy the sights. You know what I mean? Trying to pack too much into the trip might uh, again miss the opportunity to enjoy the trip.
Yeah, it's that's why talking to a travel advisor can help to make your plans realistic because you don't want to be on the move every day and you just get to see part of, tiny little bit of everything. You want to be able to enjoy it. And like my
Right.
dad said about the rain is that there are parts of Alaska that are technically classified as a temperate rainforest. So
Right.
mainly the southeastern part along the coast in south central. So that's like right where you were with Anchorage and going down to Homer and Whittier and Seward and all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to wrap up before the largest national park in the U.S. is Wrangell St. Elias National Park and Preserve with its 13 million acres.
Wow.
So yeah, the Gates of the Arctic, which is up a little bit farther, near the Arctic Circle, that's about 8.5 million acres. So, like I said, these national parks, and there's a bunch of them up there that are huge. So, but for mine is, yeah, like I just said, Alaska is gigantic. I misspoke before. It's about one-fifth the size of the contiguous United States. I think I said a third. So but still, it's like 20% as opposed to like 33%. So, you could spend months up there and still not see everything. And like I mentioned before, Travel Alaska, the official tourism board for Alaska, they break the um, state into 5 different regions. So, what I would suggest is focusing on a region or even part of
Exactly.
one of those to explore. Like my dad said. And remember, you can always go back. So,
That's for
also,
sure.
yeah, the big thing, if your goal is to see the aurora borealis, so the northern lights, plan your trip for late fall through early spring. So not only do you get a chance to see Denali more clearly in the winter, you get your chance to see the northern lights, which they happen all year round, But in the late spring, summer, early fall months, it's too bright to see it. That there's too much ambient light, because some places get darn near 24 hours of sunlight in the summer. The sun never
Right.
fully, it'll set, but you never get
Complete
was it?
darkness.
Yeah, you never get dusk. And so the dusk and dawn thing of it's always a little bit of light on the horizon. So they're happening. It's just not dark enough to see them. So if you really want it later in the late late fall, early spring, winter, those are the times when it's dark enough and also clear enough that you're going to be able to see some fantastic northern lights displays. And you don't have to stay up like really really late at night, because I had a couple that did a cruise to Alaska a couple years ago, and some other people that I know have done the cruise, and it was like, yeah, the northern lights were going to happen like at 2 in the morning, and it's like I was in bed by 10, so I
Right.
slept right through it. Now, everyone, if you have a destination or experience that you'd like to have us discuss on the Where Yinz Goin podcast, or if you'd like to share your favorite destination or a travel tip, feel free to contact me. I'd love to hear your feedback and ideas. Here at the podcast, you can find us on Facebook and X at Where Yinz Goin. Yinz, Yinz, Goin, Goin with the apostrophe. All this information is going to be in the episode description. So if you want to contact me to book a trip or have any questions, you know how to find me. Please like, follow, subscribe, leave a review, tell a friend, let other people know, especially if you're a big fisherman. My dad will be back to talk about his other trip from this past, well, by the time this year is, it'll be last year, 2025, that was to Utah and Idaho.
Great
So,
trip.
yeah, you sure know how to pick those spots.
That's it. Put them on your bucket list and do it.
I mean, one, just for the fishing, two, just for the scenery, and three, then the extra stuff that you can do with those places. So, Dad, thank you again for joining me. I greatly appreciate it. Everyone else, please join us next time. We're heading at that. We'll see you later.
All right. Take care.